This remote and historic harbour town of Namibia's southern Karas region perseveres decades of geographic isolation. The windswept, rocky hillside town is confined to a tiny area in the restricted Sperrgebiet, a 26,000 square kilometre stretch of coastal desert dunes. A solitary road meanders across the barren desert to the distant inland village Aus, 125 kilometres to the east. The lonely railroad repeatedly loses the battle against shifting dunes, adding to the seclusion of the coastal community. Namibia is located on the southern end of Africa, on the Atlantic Ocean coast, and it shares borders with South Africa, Botswana, Zambia, and Angola. Namibia's arid desert environment originates from cold, prevailing southwesterly winds blown inland beneath warmer air layers. This inversion process inhibits rain cloud formation, resulting in the planet's oldest and tallest sand dunes stretching along Namibia's entire Atlantic coast. Prevailing strong winds generate upwelling of the nutrient-rich cold Atlantic Benguela current, providing resident communities with an essential source of livelihood in the form of fishing, mariculture, and aquaculture. In 2013, the governments of Namibia, Angola, and South Africa signed the Benguela Current Convention, an environmental treaty that established the Benguela Current Commission to ensure sustainable use of the productive but vulnerable marine resources. The Benguela Current Convention, short BCC, targets the management of shared fish resources, environmental monitoring, biodiversity, and ecosystem health. BCC's core activities encompass environmental governance, training, and capacity building to improve the resilience of vulnerable coastal communities to climate change-related impacts. This is our story of Luderitz.
Every day, we don't see things are going up here, things are just going down and down and down and down.
The future of Luderitz for me, it's really failure.
Life is difficult. Life is hard at the moment.
Here in Luderitz, there's no development whatsoever, no entertainment, nothing at all.
We have everything here. But what we need is, we need people to come and give us talks so that we can talk to them and explain to them what our problem is.
Problems facing this place are huge, mainly economic. It seems like the place is not developing. There is the fishing industry, and you've got some mines around here, like in Rospira and so on. But I feel like things are going down.
I'm very, very happy about this, about the workshop we are currently having now at the Benguela Community Hall.
Our involvement is really to try and get the community to go through a process called a rapid vulnerability assessment, and in some of the communities also do something which is called an adaptation planning follow-up, which is really about strategizing for them how to move forward and how to adapt and really cope with climate change, and in ways that will be feasible for them. So it's entirely community-based.
The objective of this project, national and regional, is to build resilience. And we know that climate change is in fact, and we do see the effects on the resources. And hence it is important to build resilience to ensure that there are alternative livelihoods if something happens to a resource, be it at the community level, be that in a mariculture venture or in a large-scale fisheries operation.
FAO's role in this project is to provide supervisory, technical, operational support to BCC in implementing the project. So BCC is our implementing partner of this project. BCC was chosen as the implementing partner because they are the commission who deal with the fisheries for Angola, Namibia, and South Africa.
So whatever information that we gain from there, we feed it back to the BCC, that then feeds it back to the three governments in order to change their policies or just to provide them more with, like it's more of a feedback to them so that they can improve either those communities or those towns that are affected by climate change.
In the BCC, there are small-scale fishing communities, artisanal fishing communities, and they are very vulnerable to climate change. It is expected that certain fisheries will decline, and some are. So the hope is that aquaculture, with its growth, can absorb fishing community people into the industry.
When I left school, I started fishing on the crayfish vessels. See, and that time the fish were, you can't stop. Even the rope on the trap, even the fish were on the rope. But nowadays, you don't get that same taste of fish in the traps. You only get the small. And we call it jackpot. But it's not a jackpot that like that time.
In our younger days, from very early age, there was really an abundance of crayfish everywhere. In the late 80s, it was still easy to catch crayfish over 2 kilos. At the moment, the biggest ones are 1.4 kilograms. And the reason, I think, is just overfishing in the past.
Our productivity of the marine ecosystem is determined by the wind. And sometimes when there's a reduction in the wind intensity, it also got an impact on the fisheries. So, which means that low catches, low employment.
Food chain starts with wind. So wind drives the upwelling system. The upwelling system feeds the plankton, and that is what our oysters eat.
Our area is very small, and also our weather plays a big role. If you go on the boats, small boats, on the water, we've got major winds in the summer, blowing at 35 knots for a week to 10 days. And then in winter time, of course, it's very cold. So people have to do their fishing from the shore.
People are really eager to do something about the town, but we really don't know. Where is this going to take us? If there is going to be a solution, or is things also going to stay the way things that meetings are be done and nothing is coming out of the meetings?
I work for, I can say now, maybe more than 10 years on sea, or 12 years on sea. But I didn't see the benefit which I do. I catch a crayfish, but I don't see the benefit from that.
The mandate of the BCC is, the sustainable use of the ecosystem, and these days we include the human dimension. So we need to ensure that livelihoods are sustainable, that people can still, make a living and use the ecosystem sustainably, and that's our challenge.
Because of the rough weather, the cold water, the strengthening winds, the bad weather occurrence that are more frequent than before, their fishing days are cut short. They are observing that the fish they are catching is smaller than before. And then that altogether comes down to less income than they previously had.
I really feel like we really got to see the community. Luderitz is so diverse, and it also really has so much that you can touch on, and social and economic issues are a big stressor for all communities. But in Luderitz, I think what we, through our process, found was it's a huge component of what is essentially feels like it's oppressing the community and keeping them from developing. For fishers, we really got to understand really where are their limitations and how can they move forward.
As I see in Namibia, let me say specifically in Namibia, people, we are behind. We have lack of understanding. To come up with, okay, you want to come up with something. At least you can work, you do have your own job somewhere. At least you can also have your own business here aside. But you cannot do that because what you are getting is less than what you budget. So there's no way that we can achieve our dreams in the Luderitz.
Luderitz needs fishery and aquaculture. Because we have this healthy ocean here, we have to expand into that direction to boost the economy again. The problem is that they don't really know what the chances are, so one would have to also make funds available so that they could start small businesses to help us, that we don't have to concentrate so much on producing the growing containers, so that we could concentrate more on growing of the oysters.
in the beginning phase where we are now, you do need these vertically integrated commercial operations that have to have all phases of production. They need a hatchery, they need the grow out, they need to do processing, they need to do transport, they might need to produce feed. So that's beyond the reach of a subsistence or small-scale fisherman. So it is really a commercial enterprise to start with that's going to get this industry going. So aquaculture, it's a new food production sector. I think that characterizes it. It's, it's still establishing, it is evolving rapidly. And yeah, we see a lot of environmental change. So the farmers need to adapt to that as well, in addition to establishing new technologies. So there are special challenges around aquaculture.
The testing of the oysters before they can go to the market is very, very expensive, which doesn't make it worthwhile to sell oysters locally. And we would have to get the lab or the facilities to test the oysters in Luderitz itself to bring down the cost, to make it viable to sell the product direct to the customers.
Yeah, see, that is one of the interesting things of our business is the oysters that we produce are not for Luderitz. They are for somewhere out there. But they create jobs in Luderitz, and job creation is of utmost importance. We all see the mines closing around us, and all other businesses are dying and dwindling, and fine, aquaculture is booming.
It's not a direct transfer of artisanal activity into aquaculture, because aquaculture is it's an intensive commercial farming activity. And because it's very new, you need vertically integrated operations, which are very capital intensive. So if we look here in Luderitz, we see that it's a good employer. There's something like 320 jobs in the aquaculture industry in Luderitz. So it's made a significant social impact, but we don't have small-scale aquaculture producers yet because of this high requirement for capital, for management skills and experience. So at present, for uneducated or subsistence type fishers, the best hope would be for secure jobs, and they are quality jobs. They pay higher than the fishing industry, and they're not casual jobs. And then in time, once your value chain is established, it opens the way for smaller scale businesses to come in and provide services and maybe grow out product on a smaller scale, supplying into that established value chain.
No, I hope this place will develop. This place is a unique place, yeah, not only because of the landscape, but we've got resources here. But one cannot see really the plowing back of the resources. I would like that to happen, that more is done to the development of our streets, infrastructure, yeah, and also institutions like training centers for the youth and things like that.
Absolutely. I think for this community, the big driver that is an issue is how reliant they are on the fishing to essentially provide them with livelihood. And so for us, an adaptation strategy that really came out to counteract this low catch rate of traditional resources is to actually go for things that are perhaps a little bit more outside of the box. So in our terminology, we would call it diversifying their livelihood. And Luderitz has many opportunities in terms of tourism, in terms of really drawing sporting events based around wind towards it. And those are the sorts of things that we sort of suggested and really drove the community towards thinking about.
I believe that there are options. There are many things that the community could do here. I think that in the mariculture sector, this is a sector which has a lot of potential to grow. In Namibia, I think it should perhaps be a priority to support the development of the marine aquaculture sector.
Well, for the small-scale fishermen and for the fishing tourists, I would say to open the area in the north, the Sperrgebiet. Give an area to our local people where they can do their fishing as well.
When it comes to the communities, I'll probably implement training. It feels like the community is so closed up, so it will be more of a training just to expose them to different opportunities, what's out there in the world.
It would be good that the community's capacity is built in various fields, such that maybe they are trained in a basic business startup, and they can look into doing some other businesses. They can also be trained in financial literacy, such that the little that they get, they can make better use of it than they probably currently do. And if they can also be assisted to be trained in fields that Luderitz could make use of.
So it's a question of integrating this into a plan to assist the farmers. And this all takes money, it all takes building new institutions of cooperation. So BCC's got a critical role to play to facilitate this and take the message back to national governments to put the necessary institutions in place.
So we can generate a lot of energy here from Luderitz, from the wind and also from the waste. There are a lot of ideas.
Tourism has really picked up, as I can see, the last 4 years. The reason for that is there's more and more accommodation ready for the tourists. And we have really a lot of tourists coming into Luderitz nowadays.
The solutions that I find that I want to be implemented here is like they talk about that we have to create a group. If you can start up with a group, then I can see things can go forward. The group first, then ongoing meetings until we get what we really want for us to be done in this town.
I think this drive towards cooperative ideas within a community space is something that's growing globally and has been shown in countries like Angola and in fact outside of the African continent to be incredibly effective tools to allow communities to develop themselves. And a big driver, and so I was so excited to hear it come from them, is this whole idea of we need to form a collective, we need to be a cooperative, and within a group there's so much more power for us to enact change.